mynews.studio.
Picture this: giant turbines spinning over golden fields while coal plants stand quiet in the background. Has the EU finally figured out how to shift to clean energy?
Today is June 1st, 2025. The European Union just hit a major milestone. Over 60% of its electricity now comes from renewables, and fossil fuel use is at its lowest in 40 years. That's significant. But what actually made this possible?
It comes down to a mix of sustained investment and coordinated policy. The EU really pushed solar and wind projects, but also set clear targets. I'm thinking of the European Green Deal and the Repower EU plan. For 2030, the official goal is 42.5% renewables for all final energy use, with an aspirational target of 45%. But here's the interesting part.
Wait, so electricity generation is already ahead of those targets?
Exactly. Electricity is outpacing the broader energy targets. That's why this moment matters.
When we talk about renewables here, are we mostly referring to solar and wind, or are other types playing a role too?
Solar and wind are leading, yes, but hydropower and biomass are important, especially in places like Sweden and Finland. Meanwhile, Spain and Germany have focused on solar and wind. But every country's starting point is different.
So, is that down to geography or more about national policy?
It's a mix. Sweden and Denmark, for example, have lots of rivers and steady wind, so geography helps. But policy is crucial too. Some governments have made permitting easier, kept incentives stable, and planned long-term. Others, like Luxembourg or Malta, don't have the same resources and face more hurdles scaling up renewables.
Let's get into the obstacles. Even with all this progress, what's still holding things back?
The big issues are permitting delays, inconsistent government support, and supply chain snags. Sometimes projects get stuck in paperwork. That's why the EU rolled out digital platforms to speed up approvals. And the Clean Industrial Deal, launched this year, is putting €100 billion into clean manufacturing in Europe.
That's to reduce reliance on imports, right? And make supply chains more secure?
Exactly. It's about building up domestic capacity so companies aren't as vulnerable to global disruptions.
How about investors? If government support flips every election, doesn't that make investment risky?
That's a huge point. Investors need predictability. The EU is pushing for stable, long-term policy frameworks and steady incentives. That's what gives companies the confidence to put money into big projects.
If we zoom out, why does this matter beyond Europe? Is this a model other regions can actually follow?
That's really at the heart of it. The EU isn't a small experiment. It's a major economic bloc. If they can coordinate on this scale, it suggests others can too. For countries struggling to hit climate targets, the EU's path offers both hope and a practical example.
Would you say cross-border cooperation is the real difference here? Because lots of regions seem to struggle with aligning grids and policies.
Yes, and that's a key takeaway. The EU invested in interconnected electricity grids and harmonized technical standards. That lets countries share power and balance the system. For example, if the wind isn't strong in Germany, it might be sunny in Spain.
So in short, coordination, clear policy, and modern grids are what make large-scale renewables possible.
That's it. With the EU showing it can be done, the conversation is changing. The question now is, what's stopping other regions from following this?
Or maybe, what's the real cost of not trying? The EU's example shows ambitious climate action is realistic, and it brings cleaner air, lower emissions, and a more resilient energy system.
That's the core of the story. Europe's transition isn't just about statistics. It's a working model the world can look to.
Thanks for joining us as we took apart how the EU made this leap into renewables and what it could mean everywhere else.
You've been listening to your source for critical news and practical solutions. Thanks for tuning in. This episode was powered by mynews.studio. Available now for free.